Okay, welcome everybody to yet another Nova Scribes. We are continuing our Retooling yoU workshop series. Today we are doing principal posters. Yay, Nancy! Today we are doing principal posters. All right, so what are principal posters? Principal posters are kind of single-use images that anybody with a marker and a flip chart can sketch up in a moment's notice. Okay, so for this one, you're going to want to have really two tools with you. Have some paper of any kind. Flip chart paper is fine. If you've got small 11 by 17, 8.5 by 11, Casey, way to show your paper, Yvette, way to show your paper. That's exactly right. That's what you need. I would recommend 3 different kinds of markers. You're going to want to have a decent black for sure. You're also going to want to have a gray if you've got one. If not, it's not a big deal. And you're going to want to have a mid-tone. All right. And when I say mid-tone, I'm talking about something that shows up equally well between black and white. Your typical green is not going to cut it. You're going to need like a lighter green. An orange will work. A red will work fine. A lighter, color is what we're after. Something that can show well and not compete with the black. So you've got a black, you've got a gray, and you've got a mid-tone of your choice. Okay. I have about 18 different principal posters that I want to see if we can get through. So I'm going to go quick. Here we go. Let's do the first one. You can follow along with me. So this first principal poster, you could think of it as the principal poster of principal posters. So we're going to start with an eye, and I'm just going to do kind of like an open V shape like this. Let me know if you want me to zoom in. By the way, because of the camera setup that I've got, if something's not working out for you, you're going to need to call it out. I don't have my eyes on chat on this one. So just go ahead and go off mute, call out what you need. So we're going to go with like an eye. I like to do sort of an open V with a curve like that. And then I'm just going to draw a couple of concentric circles for a pupil and an iris, and I have an eye. If I'm feeling very fancy, I'll do just a couple of short throw lines for some eyelashes. And I've got it. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see it. Let's see. Used to know how to do that. There we go. Okay. Come over here. I may turn off the AI camera just so that's not tracking. Turning off the AI camera. There we go. Okay. So we're after this eyeball right here. You guys can see that? Give me a thumbs up if you can see that okay. Yeah? Good. So we're going to do an eye, and then I'm going to do an oval in front of it. Okay. And then another oval, well, more like a semicircle, just like that, just to mirror that. Okay, we're going to mirror the shape. Then I do a little circle, and then I give this thing a handle, and just like that, we have, of course, we've got a magnifying glass. I don't remember what those things were called. So we got a magnifying glass, and then off in front of the magnifying glass, we're going to draw a nice Bicablo person. If you don't know what that is, it's okay. Draw kind of a quick oval for a head, a rectangle for a body, couple of legs, okay? And now we have a human. We got a person. I like to do sort of a reference to a Vitruvian man. Vitruvian man, what's that? You'll see it in a second. It's that Leonardo da Vinci thing. Where you've got like all the eyes and the legs in all different directions, where he's trying to demonstrate what good proportions look like. You can do that or not. I just think it's kind of fun, and I like to do that. And this is my setup for it. Now, when I say my setup, this is, if there's anything that I've pre-charted, this is it. Okay. And by the way, this would be on a flip chart that looks something like that, about that large. Okay. So here's how I would introduce it. Thank you very much for coming to this offsite. From time to time, we are going to use different tools, theories, models, and frameworks. We're going to use things like whatever, fill in the blank. We're going to use the Myers-Briggs. We're going to use the Thomas-Kilmann conflict instrument. We're going to use a DISC. We're going to use whatever theory, model, or practice you want to bring into your facilitation. And the reason that we're going to do that is that we are going to use those tools like lenses. And we're going to use those tools like lenses in order to understand something that is really messy and ambiguous, and that is human behavior. Okay? So we use models and lenses and tools in order to understand something that is really messy and ambiguous, which is human behavior. It's so that we can get some objective distance away from what's going on. Okay, so in this way, all principal posters are like this lens. They shine a light on the thing that is messy and ambiguous, which is human behavior. Okay, that's the first one, which is a lens on human behavior. Let's do another one. Slide you over just a little bit. A little bit of pre-charting on this one. So I'm going to do kind of a curve like that. Looks like a sideways letter J. Sideways letter J. And then I'm going to draw a little Bicablo person kind of inside of it like that. And, you know, I might put this person's hands on the railing and then just give it a little bit of depth. Okay. I'm going to draw these fast. Don't worry. You can always go back. We are recording this as a video. You can always go back and check this out. I'm also going to get this out to you all via a link on the Meetup page. So I'll scan this and I'll send it out to you. So if you miss anything, just know that you're going to have this as a reference. So we've got somebody standing up in a balcony. I'm going to draw another person down here. So just a quick figure, you know, circle, shoulders, 2 lines for a body, and I'm done. That's as deep as I'm going to go on this one. And then I'm going to draw sort of a diamond shape like this to indicate a platform, something that this person is standing on. Now this is, of course, this is the principle of the balcony and the dance floor. The balcony and the dance floor. This comes to us from Ron Heifetz. Let me spell that out for you. I like to give credit where credit is due. So Ron Heifetz, Heifetz. He's got some great ones. We'll do a few more of his. The principle of the balcony and the dance floor is when we are talking about our purpose, why we're here, our objectives, the task that we have in front of us, we are on the dance floor. That is the conversation that we're having. From time to time, I am going to ask you to go up to the balcony, to abstract up, to get some distance, some objective distance on what's happening, and to make observations about what's going on. I'm going to say, I'd like to call a balcony moment. What are you noticing? What's happening in the room? What are you sensing? What are you feeling? And so that will be a balcony moment. So what the balcony does is it gives us a little bit of an objective distance. And there's nothing that can calm down conflict or hot agendas in the room, like getting a little bit of objective distance. Again, that's one of the reasons that we use principal posters in the first place. It gives us some objective distance, a diagnostic lens in order to understand what's going on. Okay, let's keep going. And by the way, if you need anything, please make requests. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep trucking. I got a lot of these I want to get through for you. Here's one that I use all the time. Here's one that I use all the time. This one comes from William Dyer. Let me do it, and then we'll get there. Some of you who have worked with me for a while, you have definitely seen this one before. I'll give you 2 different spins on this one. So sort of like the dance floor, you could say that there are 2 worlds. So I'm going to do kind of a curve like this, and then like a little drop just to give it a little bit of depth. Okay. There are 2 worlds. There is one world which is the task world. Okay. And the task world is one of answering email. It is one of org charts. It is where your to-do list lives. It's why we show up to work every day. It's to get this stuff done. Position descriptions, you know, meeting agendas, that's the task world. There is also the human world. And you could think of the human world as running almost like in parallel to the task world. You got any sci-fi fans out here? This is sort of like, you know, Doctor Strange's mirror dimension, or Stranger Things is the upside down. You know, choose your metaphor, whatever you want to do, right? But the idea here is that the human world runs in tandem and alongside the task world. Okay. Now, what happens is, from time to time, is that we get so caught up in the task world that we ignore the human world. The truth is that you have to have both, because it is within the task world that you do things like, well, build trust. If you don't have trust, you don't have anything. If you don't have trust, people fall into groupthink. They don't speak their mind, especially in a facilitation context. The human world is one where interpersonal relationships live. That's where they're grown from. That's where they come from. I would say the human world is also where communication happens. Well, wait a minute. Didn't you just say that email happens in the task world? Yeah, that's email. Real communication happens in the human world. And by the way, the idea of the human world and the task world comes to us from William Dyer. That's the way that he says it. Let me give you a little spin on it. Okay. Here's the Brian Tarallo spin on the task in the human world. Okay. Here's another way you can represent exactly the same thing. There are two worlds. Let's draw them out, except this time we're going to do them as a couple of circles, like this. So there is the task world, and there is the human world. And we could liken these two worlds almost like the wheels of a bicycle. Okay. What is the rear wheel of a bicycle for? Well, it's what gives us our forward momentum, our thrust, our drive. It's our purpose. What does the front wheel of a bicycle do? Well, it gives us our direction. It also gives us our balance. Okay. And then usually at this point, I like to do something like this. Have you ever been in an organization that looked kind of like this? Here's the human world, and here's the task world. Like that. Have you ever been in an organization that looks like this? People nod, they laugh, right? I'm like, okay, well, what is that like? Paint a picture for me. And it's miserable, right? They're treated like objects. They feel like cogs in a machine. They get chewed up. Burnout is the thing that happens. High stress. They fill in the blank for you. Now, I also, just to balance it out, I say, look, have you ever been in an organization like this, where it's all human world and no task world? Now, this is more rare, but it happens. Okay. Sometimes you get organizations where harmony is the coin of the realm, where getting along is the most important thing. And sometimes it becomes artificial harmony, where people will over-index on, well, we can't hurt anybody's feelings, right? And it ends up being really political. But you let them fill in the gaps here. So the purpose of this principle poster is to say, what is correct for your organization and culture? What is the right inflection point? What's the right point of balance there? Okay. It's not for us to tell them, but they should know for themselves. What's the right blend of task and human world? How are we doing? Thumbs up? Good? Still with me? Okay, we're going to keep going. Let's do a few more. All right. You know, it's funny. I just had a conversation with a psychologist like 30 minutes ago, and we started geeking out on the concept of actualization. Humanism, Maslow. I will spare you all the gritty details of that. Let me show you the simple principle poster that you can take away from the idea of actualization. Now, here's how this goes. So the setup is, for this one, we draw 3 lopsided concentric circles like that. Okay. That's your setup. Now, by the way, this is a good one if you are doing anything human world related. Okay. So if you're doing like a team building, leadership development, some sort of organizational cultural thing, this is a good one for that one. So we say, okay, when people come into a new space, like a facilitated offsite, when people come into a new space, first they actualize to themselves. Just to geek out a second, Jung called this individuation, right? But we actualize to ourselves as individuals. We say, okay, who am I in this space? What am I bringing to the table? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? Who am I in this context? Am I a decision maker, a subject matter expert, or somebody who's just supposed to be informed? And then once we actualize to ourselves, then we actualize to the people around us. So we draw a team. Okay. We say, who are you? What are you bringing to the table? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? You know, how do I best interface with you? How do I get you your gives and gets? And then once we actualize to ourselves as a team, we actualize to the broader organization. And for that, I just like to draw a little office building. Okay. Maybe I might put some trees around it if I'm feeling very fancy, but that's usually as far as I go. We actualize to the organization that we're a part of. We actualize to the culture. We actualize to our shared history, our values, our purpose. Okay. And actualization is a one-way road. It goes like this: individual, team, and then organization. Ryan, why are you shouting? Because this is so important and because a lot of our clients don't get this. Okay, here's how this shows up. They want to bring people together to agree on mission, vision, culture, right? Values, but they start way out here at the organizational level, and they don't do any work with the individuals or the team level. They want to skip to the end. And you can't do that. You have to build trust in this way. We orient to ourselves, and then we orient to our team, and then we orient to our culture. Let me give you a microcosm of what I think is a really, really good leadership development plan. If I had an offsite where, I wanted a group to build leadership, the first thing that I do is I'd bring them in, I'd do something like the Myers-Briggs, because that's all about yourself as an individual. The next thing I do is I might introduce something like Tuckman, right? Forming, storming, norming, performing. That's all about the team level. Or I might do something on conflict, also at the team level. And then when we finally get to the place where we're ready to do organization, I might do something like a graphic history, right? Where we actually take a look at the last, 20 years of the organization, we agree on values. But this is a great arc to follow if you're doing any sort of leadership development, team development, organizational development. Start with the individuals, then go to the team, then go to the organization. Okay, quick check-in. How are we doing? Thumbs up. Shall I keep rolling? You guys are great. All right, let's keep rolling then. This next principle poster it can also be used as a little bit of an agreement, okay? Just to set the tone, make sure that we're on the same page, and make sure that we are here at the right meeting. This is the principle of altitude. So here's how this goes. Here's the setup. I would use gray for this one. First thing that I would do, and you can do this in live. You don't have any setup for this one if you don't need it. Let me just do it the way that I would do it in the room if I had a flip chart in front of me and a group of people behind me. Okay, there are some things that we're going to want to talk about in this space during our time together. Now, there are some things that are really super high level, and I'm going to draw a cloud. There are some things that are really, really super high level. These are pretty abstract. This is like, well, what happens if there was a meteor strike? Or what happens if aliens invade, And I ask the group to say, all right, what are some examples of some things that are too high level for our conversation? What's off the table because it's too abstract, it's too big? And they give me some examples, and I write it down. Okay, thank you very much. We've got a meteor strike right here. We've got aliens right here. We've got all kinds of other stuff happening. We've got what happens if the UK decides to leave the European Union. That's kind of a big thing. It might be off the table. It might be real, but it's too big for our conversation in the room. Then there are those things that are in the weeds. And I'm just doing some quick throw lines for grass. And I might, if I'm feeling very fancy, I might just do like a daisy flower. Then there are those things that are in the weeds. There's those things that are too low level. If I was a project manager with a work breakdown structure, this would be like at the level 9 or 10 or 12 or whatever. So what are those things that are too low level? And I ask my clients, give me some examples, and I write them out. Well, we don't need to know where every nail goes. Okay, fine. If we get into, who orders the Post-it notes, we'll be at too low a level. Got it. Okay, so we write down some examples. Then, like Goldilocks, there are those things that are just right. These are the things that we want to talk about. So give me some examples. We do a quick go around. They give me some examples of the kinds of things that we absolutely want to talk about. Now, this one is the principle of altitude, not attitude, altitude. Okay. All right. Shall we keep going? There's more. Okay, let's go down a little bit on this one. If you've ever worked with me, you've seen this one, but it's so good. It's so good. Okay, so we're going to be talking about some things that are pretty abstract. We're going to be talking about our strategy. We're going to talk about our vision. We're going to talk about our values. We're going to talk about our strategic initiatives. Now, you could say that this thing that we are about to talk about is kind of like a beach ball. Okay. And of course, what does a beach ball have? Well, it's got different colors on different sides. By the way, for this one, you may want to pull out your red and your blue and your green and your orange and actually do the different colors around this thing, okay? So here's what happens. If this thing that we're talking about is like a beach ball, based on who I am, my perspective, my mental model, even my senses, everything that I am is telling me in big, bright letters that this beach ball is green. And so I may say declaratively, definitively, absolutely, the beach ball is green. And when I say that, what is the first thing that Paul thinks when I say declaratively, definitively, the beach ball is green? He thinks, go for it, Paul.
It looks white on my end.
Looks white from my side, and Paul's being nice. Usually what he thinks is this guy's an idiot. How could it possibly be? From my perspective, the beach ball is clearly white. Okay. The thing that we're going to be talking about is a lot more abstract and ambiguous than a beach ball. If we assume that the person on the other side of the room is not flat out lying to us, and let's just make that assumption right now. If we assume that the person on the other side of the table is not lying to us, then the question becomes, how might this be true? How do we hold space for these differing perspectives, these other opinions? Because if we can do that, then we can bring in all perspectives, and that's how we get the whole picture. Quick aside for you all, that, my friends, is our number one job as facilitators, is to bring in as many different perspectives as we possibly can. It is for that reason that we create psychological safety. When we talk about inclusion, that is the purpose of inclusion, to bring in everyone's ideas. Because it's not just about the loudest voice, it's about who has the best ideas, and that's how you do that. Principle of the beach ball. Okay, let's do another one. This one, Casey's going to riff with me on this one. Casey, we're going to do big hat, little hat, okay? How about I draw and you talk? You ready for me? I'm throwing you under the bus right now, but are you up for it?
I mean, yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
You want to do it? Okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
You talk, I'll draw. We'll do big hat, little hat. So,
when groups come together, one way to think about this, the question is, Brian kind of gave an example of actualization, whether it's individual or whether it's teams or the organization. So you think of the big hat is the larger organizational view. I'm an old Department of Defense guy. So the thought is, are you thinking from the flag officer's perspective? Are you thinking from the boss's perspective? We as a group are coming together, and in that moment, where's our lens at? Is our lens on the bosses and the large organization perspective? That's called the big hat. Little hats are team-based or squad-based or project-based perspective. So the idea behind the big hat and the little hat is, at what point are we having this conversation? Are we focusing now on wearing the big hat? Good, let's do that. Now let's go down and talk about the little hats. So it's to give people a role or perspective of where we are in this part of the conversation. That's excellent, my perspective.
Casey. No, excellent job. Excellent job. So from time to time, just to let you know, we are going to ask you to put on your little hat. From time to time, we're also going to ask you to put on your big hat. And don't worry, we will let you know when it's big hat, little hat time. So again, this is if we want you to take this from a team perspective versus a whole of organization perspective. That's the big hat, little hat. Okay.
So hold on, Brian.
Go for it, Nancy. What do you got?
So I'm sorry, I lost the thread on the big hat, little hat. The big hat is the organization perspective?
Yes, it's the whole system.
Mm-hmm. The whole system. Okay. And the little hat is?
That's your team. That's your individual job jar. That's your responsibilities that are right in front of you.
Gotcha. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Perfect. Okay. And it's a way, again, a lens to understand human behavior and to name how we want people to show up. Bob, I hear you. It's kind of a little hat perspective where you're coming from, worried about who's ordering the Post-it notes. I'm going to ask you to put on your big hat for this one. Okay. All right. Let's keep going. This one's super easy. You're not even going to have to draw for this one. This is the this one we're going to borrow a little bit of from improv on this one. On this one, you grab your flip chart, you get the biggest marker that you've got, and you write the word "but" on it, just like that. And you start it like this. Hey, everybody, it's great to be here with you today, but, and then people like smile, they laugh at you, and you say, okay, well, what did I just do to the front half of that sentence? Well, you don't really want to be here, Brian. Well, you know, you'd rather be doing something else. You know, this is not your thing. It's like, okay, got it. But is an example of destructive language, okay? So in lieu of using the word but, I'm going to ask you to use the word and, okay? Just take it right out of your vocabulary for the next 8 hours or however long I've got you. We're going to cross out but. Please use the word and. And is generative, and is constructive, and gives me something to work with, okay? Please use and. This is kind of fun because people will start calling each other out. And if you have certain things around the room, you know, some of us use like, you know, flying stuffed rabbits or like pink cards or whatever you use, you know, to, you know, flag on the play type thing. This is a good one. People are usually pretty good at policing each other with but and.
Brian, on but, did you say that was a destructive word?
But it's deconstructive.
Deconstructive.
Right?
Okay.
You can say it's deconstructive. I did say destructive. It's a little bit more accurate to say it's deconstructive. Okay. It's non-generative. It's non-constructive in the way that and is. All right. Now, this is one, the next one I'm about to show you. Actually, let me do a quick check-in. Thumbs up. We doing good? Excellent. All right. Still tracking. Let me just track
I had a quick question, Brian.
Yeah, go for it, Tikia.
I wanted to know if we needed to preface every demo with the lens. Should we start immediately with the lens, or is that just a reference point to come back to?
It's a reference point for you all. Now, I will bring it into specifically leadership development workshops, okay? And let me also say, I might use 3 of these in a workshop, right? It's the ones, and I would choose the ones that I think are most relevant for whatever it is that I'm doing in the room. If I'm doing leadership development work, if I'm doing team development work, and it is models heavy, then I'm definitely going to throw the lens to understand human behavior on there, okay? I'll tell you what, though, this is one that works both inside and outside the room. This is one that I almost always do in my discovery meetings when I'm doing the social contract with my clients, okay, about what my role is. Let me just do it, and then I'll talk about what it is and where it comes from. This one's super easy. You grab your mid-tone marker, and you draw a dot, and you say, okay, before we go any further, this is you. And people like kind of laugh around that. I'm like, no, seriously, this is you. And then around you, you have an envelope. Now that envelope can represent a whole bunch of things. It could represent what you're comfortable with. It could represent the outward limits of your culture and what your culture will accept. Now, sir, ma'am, my job as a facilitator is to find the edges of that envelope and to push very gently against it. Why am I doing that? Because I want to stretch your envelope a little bit so that you can have conversations that are out here. If you're unwilling to do that, you don't need me. If you want to have conversations that are right here, if you want to have the same day-to-day ordinary conversations that you've always had with no change, you really don't need me. You don't need a facilitator for that. You can do this by yourself. But if you want to have extraordinary conversations, if you want to have the kind of conversations that you've never had before, understand that I'm going to be pushing against your envelope. But, here's a but I'm going to need your feedback because I don't know where the edges of your envelope are. And more than that, I don't know how elastic it is. If I say, okay, we're going to kick off day 1 with trust falls, if I'm going to get open revolt, I need to know that in the room. So here's how this is going to work. I'm going to suggest a bunch of modalities, activities, things that we could do in the room. And you are going to discern whether or not it's going to be a little uncomfortable because you're stretching. That's a good thing. Or we're going to get open revolt and people will be like, that's it. I'm out of this. I want nothing to do with this. That's different. That's breaking the envelope. Okay. This is loosely based on the principle of actually the prime of what are called extraordinary conversations. This one, like Big Hat, Little Hat, comes from Chris McGough in his book, The Primes. I introduced the idea of the envelope just because I think it's a good visual. He does it with a couple of concentric circles. Both are fine. The idea here is that we want to move from ordinary conversations to extraordinary conversations. Here we can talk about the uncomfortable edge of learning, about having people do things for the first time in a safe way. Oh, people have never done visual templates before. Well, I bet they haven't played the French horn before either. Good news is that you're not great the first time you do it, but we're going to get you set up in such a way that you cannot fail at this. We're going to ease you into this, and you are going to have some extraordinary conversations as a result. Checking in, doing good. Keep rolling.
Brian,
Awesome.
what was his name again?
That's Chris McGough. Let me write that down. His book is called The Primes. Okay. And if you want more on that, check with Casey. I think he's pretty much got most of the primes memorized at this point. All right, let's do another one. I'm going to go a little bit in reverse in this way. Let's see, we've done the lens, we've done that one. Okay. I want to show something with you that is really, really, really near and dear to my heart. Some of you might know what this is. Some of you might not. If not, that's okay. This is a much-loved book of mine. This is Ed Emberley's Big Purple Drawing Book. Has anybody seen this one before? Couple people have, couple have not. Nancy has, Karen has. Okay, amazing. So this is, I mean, like, this kept me like sane in school because I would have like my, textbook open and then this right next to it. I would be drawing from this and taking notes. Huh? Who knew that was a job? One of the things that he's got in here, you put things together. He's got a really, really great style of drawing where you basically like you lay down color, and then you do kind of black detail on top of it. By the way, don't do a ship in the bottle. If you've ever had like designs to do a ship in the bottle, do the pirate ship from the Big Purple book. It's a great like weekend project. Anyway, if you go all the way to the end, he introduces these guys. Check these guys out. Here we are. See these little like purple kind of people? All right. They're sort of, they look kind of like sea urchins, sort of, right? So we're going to use these guys in just a second. He calls them, I've been practicing this, he calls them Ginsfort Woozlefims. And you can read more about it in the Big Purple book. Anyway, the point is that we're going to draw Ginsfort Woozlefim. But we're not going to call it that. We're going to call it a hedgehog. So here's how we're going to do this. Let's see. Is the space okay? You can see here. So we're going to do a couple of circles for some eyes, a couple dots, and then just crazy spikes going off of it like that. We have our first hedgehog. Okay. Let's draw 5 more in kind of a circle. Okay. This is the setup. You're going to draw this before you get in the room. And this one's pretty funny because people are like, what in the heck is that? And you have to explain it to them. But once you say these are hedgehogs, people are like, oh, of course it's a hedgehog. I can see it right away. Hang on a second. Let me get a better marker. So you start with like 5 hedgehogs. Let me zoom it over. Okay. Principle of the hedgehogs is as follows. So hedgehogs are funny little animals. They will, if they can, gather together for warmth, right? And so they will get close to each other. But they can't get too close because what happens when you get too close? Ouch, right? They prick each other. And so the principle of the hedgehogs tells us is that we want to find kind of a distance of equilibrium. We want to get close enough such that we can enjoy each other's warmth, but not so close that we're pricking each other. So where is the right distance in and out? And by the way, this is different for different teams. There are those teams that are really close to each other. We can call those high-performing teams. Then there are the ones that are kind of distant. We can call those work groups, okay? The principle of the hedgehogs comes to us, oh boy, here we go. Principle of the hedgehogs comes to us from Arthur Schopenhauer. and I may not have spelled his name right. Arthur Schopenhauer, Principle of the Hedgehogs. Okay.
I didn't know we were throwing philosophy into it. I love it.
Little philosophy, You know, there are principle posters everywhere, Zakia. You just have to know when to look for them. So how you might use this one, you're working with a team. Maybe they're a team that's in high conflict. Maybe they're a team that's specifically focused on their team building. Okay. But this is a way of also saying, you know, sometimes we have like close hedgehog people and far hedgehog people. Oh, you know, Casey, he's kind of a close hedgehog person. Chris, she's sort of a far hedgehog person, right? And it's just a way of saying, like, how close are we going to get to this person to find that, like, that point of equilibrium? Shall we keep going? Let's do another one. Let's do another one by, I think this one was William Dyer, but I'm not sure. Let's go over just a little bit. Sometimes we get into these situations where we are picking up a project or strategy or a plan or something kind of midstream. So people have already been working on this for a while. Okay. Now this one you can just draw in the room in a space. So you do a couple of mountains like this. Okay. Then you're going to do kind of a lazy S curve and then another one immediately following it. Now we have a path. Okay. Now for this one, I like to pull in a little bit of audience participation to say, okay, who here has ever run a marathon before? And some hands go up. Thank you, Nancy. And then I'll ask, okay, what is the experience like when you're at the very start of this marathon and you're just getting started? What is the experience like? And I get, well, yeah, exactly, Casey's showing us. So there's high energy. You know, there's excitement. There's like, oh man, this is going to be great, or I'm really scared. But there's high energy that's right there at the beginning. Super. And then what is your experience like halfway through that marathon? Fatigue. Why did I get into this? I can't wait until this is over. This is just a grind, right? This is miserable. I want to get off. Right? Let me call the SAG wagon or whoever, the sweep. You know, let me get off this thing. And then at the very end, what is your experience like when you get to the very end of the marathon? Well, it could be one of two things. Yeah, either Casey's like, yeah, this is great. This is awesome. Can't wait to do it again. Or I am never doing this again, right? But what happens is that for those of us that have been on this journey for a while, it is easy to forget the pain and suffering that we went through in the middle of this thing. So if you have been a part of this strategic plan or this vision or this change or whatever it is that you're working on, hold space for people who are at different places in the marathon. Now, occasionally what I'll do is I'll incorporate something like a quick self-portrait where I have people draw themselves, right, onto a sticky note, a big one. And then I'll say, I want you to place yourselves on the marathon. Where are you with regards to this change or this vision or this strategy? And so we're explicit about who's in the room and where they are on the marathon. This one is the principle of the marathon. I will double check this. I believe this one comes from William Dyer as well. Remember, he was the one that gave us the task world and the human world, but I will double check on that one.
Can you show us how to draw a finish line ribbon just to be cute?
Oh, sure, just to be cute. All right, let's slide over just a little bit. I'm going to start with my person because that's the reference for it. Now, if you think about it, you know, if you get to a finish line, you know, you're going to throw your hands up, right? It's going to be, you're going to kind of lean back a little. So I'm going to start with the head. I'm going to have like this guy leaning way back like this. And then just picture arms raised in victory. So I'll have an arc like this, another arc like this, and then a couple of little semicircles for like the hands raised high, you know, fists. I like to do kind of the exaggerated run, you know, kind of like an homage to Coyote and Roadrunner. So I've got a knee pointing up, a knee pointing down, and then feet. Now I've got my runner. By the way, if I want to sell this guy as running a little bit, easy way to do that is just to do a couple of quick throw lines at the bottom for a shadow. Now he's like in the air, super excited. I could add a little bit of just like drops for sweat, and my runner is done. He's more than done. Finish line, here we go. all I do is I get a nice big marker and kind of do a curve off of him like that. And then maybe a trailing edge behind him. And I would call it a day. Okay.
Love it. Perfect. Thank you.
I'm glad you dig it. This is not high art, in case you haven't noticed, right? This is what we like to call the MVP, minimum viable picture. It is the simplest way that you can represent something such that you can actually carry the idea, such that people can actually recognize what it is. Nobody's going to confuse this for like high art. Okay. Shall we do a couple more? Let's do a few more. Man, time flies when you're having fun. Okay. Let's do this one. This is one that I do in advance of thinking that I might have resistance to the process. If I'm worried about people flipping out, right, and getting off this crazy ride halfway through, you can bet that I'm going to give them the principle of the roller coaster. So here's how this one goes. This is drawn in a very specific way. So I'm going to draw a hump, like a bell curve, okay? Or what is that, a normal distribution? If I can geek out a little bit. Let me go up a bit. And then I'm going to curve it back towards the start, but not actually starting. And you'll see, not actually like closing, and you'll see why in just a second. You know, I might do a couple of just like quick throw lines, some vertical ones to indicate, you know, the structure of the thing. And then maybe some horizontal ones, just some quick hatching. And if I'm feeling very fancy, I might put a couple of flags on it. Okay. I'm going to prep it a little bit with just some wide dots. I'm using my big one marker for this one. So I've got some wide dots here. And I'm just going to prep it like that. Now my prep is done. I'm ready to go. Okay. Comes time for me to introduce the principle of the roller coaster. I would do it like this. I say, okay, what we are about to do during our time together is a lot like a roller coaster. This is going to sound a lot like the marathon, which you just got. It's a lot like a roller coaster. If you can imagine yourself sitting in that car as it goes chunkada, 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 you know, as it's going up the hill, what is the condition of the people sitting in that car? What is it like? You can feel free to call it out. You know, what's it like when you're at the bottom of the roller coaster, looking at that incline as you're going up? Yeah, go for it. Craig, Casey, what do you got?
Nervousness, being nervous.
Nervous, okay, and we write this down. So we say nervous, okay. There's some unknown. This is what people are saying. You're just writing down what they say. It's unknown. I don't know where this thing is going, right? There might be some fear. There might be some excitement. And by the way, all of these are correct. You're a facilitator. You're not a consultant. You just report what they say. Whatever they write down, that is all data, and data is good. Okay, great. So at the bottom of the roller coaster, we can't see over the hump. Fear, nervousness, unknown, some excitement. Then what about when you're at the top of the roller coaster? Now you can see where this is going. You know what the path is. You know what the destination. You're like, oh, I can see my car from here. What is your condition like at the top of the roller coaster? People will say the same thing. Well, there's fear. I want to get off, you know, Jane, get me off this crazy thing, you know, whatever it is, right? Like you just write down whatever it is that they say. Okay, great. Thank you. Got it. And then what about when you're hurtling down the hill at 60 miles an hour? What is your condition like? You know, and they name it. They say, okay, well, it's sheer panic, it's terror, or it's excitement, it's energy, it's woo-hoo! Whatever they say, you write it down, right? You capture it. Okay? That's what it's like going down the other side of the roller coaster. And then as you're coming into the station, or whatever it's called, you know, you're kind of taxiing back in. What is your condition like? And you ask them, and they say things like, well, relief, you know, I want to do it again, or I never want to do it again. Okay. You have those two conditions. You honor both of them. And you say, thank you very much. Okay. Just like there is an experience going through a roller coaster, you are going to have an experience as you go through this workshop. or this offset or whatever it is. There are going to be moments where you don't know where this is going. I have done my best to share the agenda. In fact, the room is the agenda. If you look around, you can see where we start, middle, and end is in the room. However, you're still not going to know where this is going. Now, at a certain point, you are going to know where this is going, and you may have some doubts about it. This is perfectly normal. And by the way, just for you all practicing facilitators out there, I find that this happens right in the middle of whatever the time block is. If I'm doing a week long, right, like a Monday through Friday, I get my pushback on a Wednesday. Oh, this isn't getting us what we need. If I'm doing a 2-day, it happens like at the end of day 1. This isn't getting us what we need. The wrong thing to do, back to the group, the wrong thing to do is to get off the roller coaster. What happens if you get off of a roller coaster at the top of the hill? You're stuck. You're not moving anywhere, right? You're just hanging out in space. You are going to experience over the course of our time together excitement, nervousness, fear, panic, and relief. And that is all part of the process. Some of you I have talked to. I've done some stakeholder interviews. Quick, raise your hand for me. Who have I talked to? Like about 10% of the hands go up. Okay, these people are part of your organization. They were instrumental in the design of this experience. We are confident that this is going to get you to where you need to be. The important thing to take away here is don't get off the roller coaster. Stick with us on this one. Okay. We've got time for just a couple more before I run through them. Questions, queries, posers, highlights, insights. What's coming up for you all? I got time for just a couple more. And I have like 6 more I could do, so don't worry about me. I've got content. Yeah.
What's coming up for me is amazing.
Where are you on the roller coaster, Nancy? I'm glad you're digging it. Okay. Others? Anybody else?
Brian, I really like the way you did the roller coaster there. Is that the whole point is not to get off the roller coaster, and the way you set it up with the moments you'll have doubts. You're going through everything they've listed out themselves: excitement, unknowns, fears, doubts. And we've built this. We've also worked with you, members of your team, to help ensure we have the best possible design the best possible ride for you through this event.
Yep.
And we're confident we'll get you there safely. Yeah.
We've done our homework. We feel confident that this is going to get you where you need to be. All right. Thank you, Casey. And thanks, Nancy. All right. I'm going to do one for you just because, and this one is one that I save for very, very, very special occasions. Okay. Some of you that know me know that I'm a big fan of Frederick Laloux. In fact, to that point, you can find your way to Zoom chat. His principle of pay what you want is in there with regards to donations for this. If you've gotten anything out of this, please do. Buy us a cup of coffee, whatever helps. It all goes back into the meetup. This is another one that comes from Frederick Laloux, and it's kind of hard for me to get out there, but I'm going to give it a try. So here's the setup for it. You draw a face. So let me show you a real simple face. I like to start with the eyebrows, like that. Okay, a couple of curves for the eyebrows. And then just a down line on one of them to indicate the nose. Another kind of a horizontal line for the bottom of the nose. A couple of dots for the eyes. Kind of a stretched out M shape with a couple of dimples for a mouth. Bottom lip. Okay. And then a couple of circles, semicircles, letter C, if you think of it that way. For ears, a big U for the chin. And then you can kind of just go nuts on the hair, whatever you want to do, right? Just sort of be freewheeling with the hair. Do a bit of a hairline. It's irregular. And then if you want to, you could stop right there, but if you want to, you could add a neck and a couple of shoulders. Now, for this one, I'm going to need a bigger marker. Bear with me for a second. Okay. If you have a 30 millimeter Molotow, which looks like this, okay, this is actually a 50 millimeter, but a 30 will be fine. Or a big one, a Neuland big one. That works for this one, for the one that we're about to do. Now, this is the, like I said, this one it's a little bit hard for me because it's close to my heart. This is the principle of the whole self, okay? So we often tell our participants or ask our participants to show up as their whole selves. Some of them may not feel comfortable doing that based on who's in the room. So you never know if people are actually being their whole selves or not. And that's within reason. Okay. Sometimes you don't actually want somebody's whole self to show up, but that's up to you to decide. But here's the way that I like to say it. For the time that we have together, I do want you to show up as your whole selves. And here's what that means. If you think about the whole person right at the very beginning, you can cut that person right down the middle into your deepest hopes and values, which you typically keep to yourself. And then your ego, which is the side of yourself that you show to the world. So again, your deepest hopes and values you keep to yourself. By the way, this is a misbehaving marker. You should not be doing this. And then there's your ego. Once you take your ego, you could actually further subdivide it. Now, in our culture, the United States, business, whatever you want to call it, let me just say this. There is a premium placed on the masculine and a discount placed on the feminine. We tend to value the masculine more than we do the feminine. And this goes for both. I mean, I have a feminine side. Women have masculine sides. I'm not talking about gender here. I'm talking about those different sides of our personality. Okay. And in general, in business, corporations, organizations, again, we tend to put a premium on the masculine and we tend to discount the feminine. So you can cross that one off right there too. Then we can take the masculine and we can further subdivide it into other quadrants. There's the emotional side. Well, we don't have time for that in business. Then there's the intuitive side. Going with your gut, trusting your instincts, noticing big patterns. Well, we don't really have time for that either. That's not scientific. Then we have the spiritual side. No, thank you. There's no space for the spiritual unless you make it. Now, what does that leave us with? The rational. And so oftentimes we find ourselves in conversations with each other where we're really just showing about 1/16 of our whole persona, of our whole psyche, of who we really are. So what I'm going to ask you is for our time together, if we really want to have some breakthroughs, if we really want to have some extraordinary conversations, is that you show up as your whole self. So that is the principle of the whole self. And that comes to us from Frederick Laloux. And you can read more about that in his book, Reinventing Organizations. I saved this one for very, very special occasions. I don't use this one a whole lot. Okay.
Brian,
all right.
Could you briefly go over what were the parts that you split up in the masculine? I think there were 4. So I got the rational, the intuitive, the spiritual. Was there another one?
The emotional.
Thank you.
Those are the 4. And we leave space for the rational. We tend to discount the rest. Okay.
And what was the left side? The whole left side?
The left side was your deepest hopes and values. The right side was your ego. Okay.
Thanks.
And with that, it is just about 3 o'clock. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. Thank you all for attending. If you haven't already done so, feel free to, kick us something over. Just to let you know, in just about 2 minutes, we're about to launch another Nova Scribes, where we're going to be doing an IFVP, International Forum of Visual Facilitators, an IFVP virtual summit. And I'd highly encourage you to check us out over there. Thanks everybody for coming. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. It's been a pleasure. Next time, my place.
Thank you for another dynamic